What's up, guys? Nuance Bro checking in, and today we're going to be talking about the 2021 election. Now, I'm not going to talk about it in its entirety. I'm going to pick a few points that I think are interesting that we should talk about and that might be kind of funny. So we're going to go over that. So generally speaking, the 2021 election was an absolute disaster for the Democrats. They got pretty much destroyed. Republicans swept in many ways that people didn't expect. And the general sentiment is that these 2021 elections are a bellwether for future elections in 2022 and 2024. So let's start off with Virginia. In Virginia, you had the Republican Glenn Youngkin beating the former governor, not the immediate current governor, but this person used to be governor, Terry McAuliffe. Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, beat the Democrat, Terry McAuliffe, and he did so by about 2.5 percentage points. Now, keep in mind, in the recent 2020 election between President Biden and President Trump, Biden won the state of Virginia by about 10 points. So here you basically had a 12-point swing in the direction of the Republican. And here's a map that I think really points out how drastic this rightward shift in the state of Virginia was. Now, this comes from the New York Times, and the article, here are 5 takeaways from the election results. And if we scroll down, we can see this map, and this is the shift from 2020 in margin between being more Democratic or more Republican. And as you can see here, these are arrows for every county in the state of Virginia. All these arrows are Republican arrows. Every single county in the state of Virginia became more Republican from 2020. There is not a single blue arrow in this entire map. Every single county in the state of Virginia got more Republican. Not a single one got more Democrat since 2020. That is huge. Now you might say, well, that's not fair. 2020 was a presidential election year, whereas 2021 is an off election year. Democrats tend to show up in higher numbers during election years, presidential election years, that is. But here I'll show you another map that almost shows the same thing, but this is for 2017. So if you look here, you can see how Youngkin shifted the vote toward Republicans across Virginia. And this is compared to the 2017 gubernatorial election, which is also an off-year election. And you can see just about almost every county, once again, shifted more Republican in 2021 compared to 2017. This is despite the growing number of Democratic votes in the state of Virginia due to demographic change. In addition to that, Republicans also took the Virginia House. So the Republican governor will have a Republican House when he goes into office. Now, the interesting thing to me was how the different political parties framed this win. And frankly, I think they're both wrong. But let's start with the Democrats. A line you saw from many in the political punditry class on the Democratic side was that this was a win for white supremacy or something like that. As you can see here in this tweet from Jameli Hill, she's a contributing writer for The Atlantic, and she said, "It's not the messaging, folks. This country simply loves white supremacy." Here you can see Tiffany Cross, who is filling in for Joy Reid on MSNBC, telling us what the real lesson was.
This isn't about enthusiasm. This isn't about Democrats not doing enough to exercise their base. And this definitely is not about messaging or even about beloved. This is about the fact that a good chunk of voters out there are okay with white supremacy. Let's call a thing a thing. Actually, scratch that. They are more than okay.
She said a good chunk of voters out there are okay with white supremacy. This is apparently a real person saying this. And here you have Joy Reid herself saying something similar.
At this point, they're dangerous. They're dangerous to our national security because stoking that kind of soft white nationalism eventually leads to the hardcore stuff.
Now, I could go on a long spiel about how, okay, this is just a ridiculous assertion. Obviously, Youngkin's not a white supremacist. Obviously, the people who voted for him in large numbers are not white supremacists or people who are okay with white supremacy. This is absurd. What makes it even more absurd is the fact that the person running for lieutenant governor as a Republican that the people of Virginia overwhelmingly voted for was a black woman. In fact, you can see her right here holding an AR-15 in all her glory. Her name is Winsome Sears, which is kind of funny because she definitely won some. Winsome did. Winsome won some. I know. She's a Marine veteran, former state delegate, and here you can see her actually responding to Joy Reid's comments.
Your reaction to that, Ms. Sears?
I
wish Joy Reid would invite me on her show. Let's see if she's woman enough to do that. I'd go in a heartbeat and we have a real discussion without Joy speaking about me behind my back, if you will. She talks about white supremacy. Does she know that I ran against a white supremacist? I mean, Joy, come on, get your facts straight and then come talk to me.
Now, I can only assume that she was talking about the current governor, Ralph Northam, who, had that whole controversy about him either wearing a KKK outfit or being in blackface back in his younger years and during Halloween or something like that. Frankly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Pretty funny, though, given the standards of the left. But she decided to say, hey, if you're going to lob a ridiculous accusation towards me and my running mate and the people of Virginia, well, wait, I can play that game too. I can play that game too, buddy. Now, on the other side of the coin, you had the Republicans, the GOP establishment in particular, like the actual party apparatus. And what they were saying is that the people of Virginia decided to reject socialism. As you can see, this tweet from the GOP last night made it abundantly clear. Americans choose freedom and reject socialism. Red wave, red wave, red wave, red wave on them, all that stuff. Here's another one from House Republicans. Americans don't want socialism. Pass it on. So this is a pretty standard Republican talking point. They always talk about rejecting socialism, vote for free markets, capitalism, and things like that. The Democrats are socialist. Biden is socialist. The Republicans, they want freedom, free markets. The problem is, even though that's a very common messaging point that they use, especially in states like Florida during presidential elections because it's effective there, in this race, if you check, you look at the ads that Glenn Youngkin ran, if you look at his tweets, if you search for the word socialism, you know how many results you find? 0. There are no mentions of socialism from Glenn Youngkin on his Twitter page, for example. This was not the standard Republican campaign as far as the socialism messaging. It wasn't used. So why is the GOP harping on that point? It's because they're a one-trick pony and they just repeat themselves constantly. They don't get it. They're dinosaurs. The big issues of this election were things like critical race theory, inflation, your grocery bills going up, things like that. Crime. That was the message from the Republican Glenn Youngkin. On the Democratic side, we've talked about this before. If you saw my previous video about the Democrat plants who had the tiki torches and things like that, they basically made their entire message anti-Trump. Trump is bad. Trump is bad. Glenn Youngkin is related to Trump. He's tied to Trump, not related, blood related, but, endorsed by him and things like that. So Trump bad, therefore Glenn Youngkin bad. Don't vote for Glenn Trumpkin. They even called him that. And like I said earlier, this election serves potentially as a bellwether for the 2022 midterms coming up and the 2024 presidential election that's coming up. And that's not just me saying that. That's Vice President Kamala Harris saying that. Take a look.
Because you see, what happens in Virginia will in large part determine what happens in 2022, 2024, and on.
Ooh, that's a tough one for the Democrats. The next race I want to talk about is New Jersey. Now, New Jersey is generally viewed as a very solid Democrat state. This is a state that Joe Biden won by 16 points in 2020. And frankly, most people wrote this election off. But as you can see here, the Republican challenger to Phil Murphy came very, very close, within 2 percentage points. And this surprised pretty much everybody, because resources weren't really dedicated to this race as much as they should have been given the numbers that we see here. If there just had been that much more attention paid to this race and resources invested by the GOP in this race, maybe you could have had a Republican governor. But I think my favorite story out of New Jersey is not how close this race was or whatever. My favorite part about this story is about a very particular race. And that's the race of the state Senate President Sweeney, who's a Democrat, who lost his job. He lost his race to the Republican challenger, who was this guy. His name is Edward Durr. He's a truck driver. And as you can see from this article, he spent $153 on his campaign. $153, and he beat the state Senate president, a guy with no political experience. In fact, if you go to his Twitter page, you can see his campaign logo, which looks like it was built on Microsoft Paint. Edward Durr, the number 4 for Senate. Oh my God, it's amazing. And remember, this is the Nuance Bro channel, so we're going to look into the numbers here. $153. What did he spend that on? Well, here we have the numbers. Let's take a look. So if you scroll down in the article, you can see here that he raised more than $10,000 during his campaign, but he spent only $153, of which $66.64 he spent at a Dunkin' Donuts to buy food and drinks for staff, and $86.67 for paper flyers and business cards. So the state Senate president, a Democrat, career politician, basically, got beat by a truck driver who's not a politician, who spent $153, 40% of which he spent at Dunkin' Donuts for food and drinks. It's amazing. And frankly, this guy reminds me of the quintessential Facebook boomer. You know, the kind that has a profile like this that you always see in the comments section of the most viral post on Facebook that's political in nature. He's that guy. In fact, this is where he lives. Does it get more American than this? He's got a tiny blue house, looks like a Harley, a rusted Mustang in the driveway. This man is America. Or should I say, America. The next race I want to talk about is out of Buffalo, New York. Now, Buffalo, New York is a race where a Democratic incumbent mayor was actually primaried by a Democratic socialist. This is not me calling them a Democratic socialist or a socialist. This is a person who is self-declared as a Democratic socialist and associates themselves with the Democratic Socialists of America. Her name is India Walton. And after winning the primary, a lot of people thought, hey, this is a very Democrat town. If you win the Democrat primary, you are going to become mayor. And a lot of Democrats and progressives were very happy about this. But when it came to election day, it didn't look so hot. And one of the things that I saw that was interesting from a lot of the progressive commentators as they were seeing the election results roll in from places like Virginia and New Jersey, they were basically saying things like you're seeing Crystal Ball say here, which is Democrats should finally learn that being anti-Trump isn't enough. Instead, they'll find a way to blame the left. And I saw this from other commentators, Kyle Kulinski and others, saying that the real problem is that Democrats weren't left enough. They were just too moderate. They weren't left where it mattered. Well, I decided to quote tweet that Crystal Ball tweet, and you can see here, I said, oh yeah, the left is doing great, Crystal. And that's, you can see here, India Walton, this is the person who has the Democrat primary nomination, is actually losing to write-in candidates. The write-ins have many more votes than India Walton. Disaster. Keep in mind that this is someone who had a lot of endorsements, actually. I mean, she had the endorsement after she won her primary of Chuck Schumer. This is the Senate Majority Leader in Congress. Kirsten Gillibrand, another prominent U.S. Senator. She had the endorsement of Elizabeth Warren and even Bernie Sanders. And just so you know that I'm not lying about her being a Democratic socialist or whatever, as you can see from this article, she says here, I'm very proud to be a Democratic socialist. I am proud to have the support of Buffalo DSA and National DSA, Democratic Socialists of America. But as of the recording of this video, 92% reporting for the votes. The write-in has 58.8% of the votes. India Walton has 41.2% of the vote. And even according to her campaign, Democratic Socialist India Walton says victory in Buffalo mayoral race, quote, seems unlikely after incumbents' write-in campaign. So she went to social media and she was saying things like millions of dollars came pouring in to finance attack ads, personal smears, and racist, sexist fear-mongering. Once again, it goes to this old playbook of racism. Oh, if you don't vote for me, you're a racist. They're calling people who voted for a black lieutenant governor racist. They did the same thing to Larry Elder in California, a black man. Anyone who voted for him, racist, white supremacist. People aren't falling for it. They know it's a ridiculous charge. By the way, this is the guy that she was running against. This is the guy that people wrote in. So she's claiming the attacks against her are racist. Bro, your opponent is a black guy. He's black just like you. But nothing has to make sense in cuckoo land. And the last one I want to talk about is in this Texas House District 118. This is in San Antonio, and it's an area that has a 73% Latino population. It's an area where Biden won 14 points above Trump. And here we can see the Republican actually won 51-49. So that's pretty incredible. No matter how you slice it, this was a disaster day for Democrats. It was as bad as they could possibly imagine. The question is, will they get the message? Will they make the right adjustments so that they won't get totally destroyed in the midterms and 2024? Or will they continue to make the same excuses as they always do and continue to delude themselves in their own little bubbles where they don't know what's actually going on in real America? I don't know. You guys let me know down in the comments. What do you think? Anyways, guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, especially like. That really tends to help out, and lots of comments. That always helps out with the algorithm. Algorithm's good. Help boost the videos. Like and subscribe and do all that good stuff. Social media links are in the description box below, as well as merch. Support us at nuancebro.com/join. It really helps out the channel. And I'll see you next time, bro.